Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'll just be talking about how I got into my number one program, aka UPenn, for internal medicine residency. And for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Chinakwa Denibo. I'm a first year medical resident at University of Pennsylvania Hospital. And in case you haven't seen the other video, there's a video of how I matched and my match day. If you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up if you find it helpful. It really does mean a lot and it helps the algorithm a lot. This is also just my own personal advice. I am not paid or solicited in any ways to give these advice. They're just my own personal advice and my own personal opinions. They do not reflect the opinions of the programs I work with or the hospitals I'm affiliated with. Okay, so first things first, I don't want this to seem like I'm bragging at any point in the video. I'm simply just sharing my experience on the things I did and my path to where I got to, and also some of the advice that I have on things that worked for me and things that didn't work. So for those of you that are kind of new to the channel, my background is I was born in Nigeria and I grew up in Nigeria till the age of 14, and then we moved to Canada, and I ended up getting my first degree in Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and I worked as a registered nurse for about just almost 3 years before I then got into medical school. So it was a very untraditional pathway to medical school. I first went through the nursing route, worked as a nurse, and then decided, you know what, I think I want to go to medical school. And then I had to go through the route of applying to medical schools as well as taking out the prerequisites that were needed before I got into medical school. And I can make a separate video on why I decided to quit nursing and go the medical route. But anyway, so went to medical school in Michigan at Michigan State University, and ultimately matched into the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania of UPenn. And that's where I am right now for residency. So first things first, in regards to tips and advice and things that helped, the number one thing was having a clear vision right from first year of medical school on the kind of programs I was aiming for. So because I'm thinking of doing a fellowship in a very competitive specialty, after my residency, I'm thinking of doing a cardiology fellowship, and I always knew it was extremely competitive. So from the first day, from the beginning of medical school, I give myself a target of trying to get into a top academic institution for residency, because then that increases my chances of matching into a cardiology fellowship. And that was how I started working myself up in regards to research experiences. So I try to take on any research opportunities that I had along the way, as long as it didn't affect my grades, because the number one important thing was making sure that my grades in medical school were on par, as well as my board exams. And then after that, focusing on things like community service and volunteer work and other things that I knew would eventually help to buff up my CV. So I wasn't just looking at just my grades. It wasn't just sit down, study every day, try to be the best in your class or try to have the highest grade. I tried to make sure I was well-rounded. I tried to enjoy my time in medical school. I socialized well enough. I got to connect and meet people. I got to do research. I got to do volunteer work. And all of this was all just like getting small building blocks that I knew would represent itself well in my CV. So that was number one. And then number two was when it then came closer to application time for residency. I did a deep analysis of my strengths and also like really reflected on my chances of getting into specific places. And I tried to narrow down the places where I thought like I had a good chance. For example, there were some programs in California that I was like, yeah, I don't think I have any chance at all because one, they're extremely competitive. Two, I have no ties or connections to California. So I kind of knew that my chances were kind of limited. But in the Northeast, I had a lot of connections and ties. So I started to work on improving those ties and connections to places in the Northeast. So programs like the Harvard program, Cornell, UPenn, Johns Hopkins. I applied to do an away rotation at these places, and I knew that doing an away rotation almost get my foot in, at least one foot in, and then that would be an additional layer on top of like what I've already built during medical school to help improve my chances of ending up at one of these programs. So I have a lot of families in the Northeast area. So I got into UPenn, Johns Hopkins, and Mount Sinai for away rotations, and I decided to do UPenn and Johns Hopkins. And without a doubt, that was one of the best decisions I've made because the connections I made while I was here at Penn was absolutely incredible. And on top of that, it really opened my eyes on the kind of things I wanted in a residency program. I got to see firsthand how the residents work and the environment and the city, Philadelphia as a city as well. And I fell in love with the city, fell in love with the program, fell in love with the attendants, fell in love with the fellows, the cardiology fellows, fell in love with everything about the program. And that was when I decided, okay, this is probably going to be my number one program. And I then had to make sure that on my application and my CV, everything that I did during my away rotation was well reflected. And those all really helped. I also got a couple other interview invites at some top Ivy League programs, but I stopped and I asked myself, okay, if you were to go to a specific program that does, let's say, 28-hour shifts while you're inpatient, so while you're on the wards, if you were to be doing 28-hour shifts every time you had a general medicine ward, is that something that will make you happy over your 3 years of residency? Versus if you were to only have the 28-hour shifts only when you're on the ICU unit and not during your wards. On your general wards, you will just be doing the long call, short call. So just working regular days like 7 to 7 rather than 28-hour shifts every 4 days. And I decided that I liked the 7 to 7 every day rather than 28-hour shifts every time I'm on general medicine ward. So those were little decisions that I had to like make and decide and figure out like what works best for me. And also looking at things like the city, family members, the diversity of the program, how comfortable I felt when I was in the program, how well supported I felt during my time in the program or during my time at the away rotation. And it was a close tie. It was a really close tie between UPenn, Johns Hopkins, Harvard, Massachusetts General Hospital, and also Vanderbilt in Nashville. It was a very close tie, but ultimately I decided to go with UPenn because I just felt that the connection came a lot more natural, and also the work hours were similar to what I felt suited me best. I felt the way the work hours were structured suited me best, and also the connections I made during my away rotation suited me best. And also the city of Philadelphia, I love how diverse it is. It's a very, very diverse city, but also a very fun, lively city. Lots of young adults as well. Lots of education opportunities around, but at the same time, lots of theater, lots of sports. Don't even get me started with the sports scene in Philly. Like, they're obsessed with their sports. Shout out the Eagles. Sixers, I don't know, man. I went to watch a Sixers and Raptors game last weekend, and being that I'm a Toronto guy, I was supporting the Raptors, and unfortunately they lost to the Sixers, but it's all good. Anyways, the Phillies, you know, like, Philly is just an incredible city. And I just fell in love with the city when I was here. So that, as well as everything else with the program itself, just it felt like a match made in heaven, and it aligned perfectly. And so that was why I ultimately decided to rank UPenn number one. And thankfully, I ended up here, and I believe everything works out for a reason. So the advice I'd give to others that are kind of like in the same situation is to definitely do a very good deep self reflection and analysis on where you feel your strengths lie the best and where you feel you have the best chance. If I had wasted my time applying to a bunch of California programs thinking that, oh, I would love to live in LA or San Francisco or, you know, California in general, the draw of California, if I was obsessed with all of that, I most likely wouldn't have had much luck matching anywhere over there. But just knowing that like the Northeast, I had a stronger opportunity, and also like making some connections during, be it your away rotations or just from like virtual meet and greets. Try to utilize those connections. That'll definitely take you a long way. And on top of that too, looking at some of the little intricacies in the programs, for example, the work hours, the kind of support they provide for residents, because those little things do add up, and it means a lot, especially during the stressful time of residency. Residency is already an extremely stress-invoking time. So some of those little perks make a big difference. Another thing with UPenn that I really loved is going to seem very simple and very petty, but when I was doing my away rotation, every single day we had lunch provided for us. So that just took away a lot of stress of like making my own lunch. And I'm not gonna lie, I factored that in when I was ranking programs. But that's all to say that like some of those little perks do add up and do count. In regards to like just, you know, your overall wellness during residency. So with that said, am I saying that my program is a perfect program? No. Of course, there are things they could work on and things they could improve on. But overall, I'm happy with where I'm at. And yeah, that's why I decided to pick Penn over like other top Ivy League programs that I interviewed at. But anyways, if you haven't yet, you can also check out the video over here that kind of like talks about my advice for people going through the interview process. And also you can check out other videos on the channel as well. Thank you all so much for watching today. But without further ado, catch you all on the next one. Ciao.